Live. Hello everyone, Dick Lucas coming at you, No Gradient Podcast. Today we're going to talk about a really interesting project called Numerai. Now Numerai is a cryptocurrency. I'll give you a quick high-level rundown and then we'll get into the details. Numerai is a cryptocurrency project. It's built on the Ethereum blockchain and it uses their NMR token. And what it does is it basically crowdsources data from a bunch of participants. Anyone can participate in the network to run a hedge fund. So the magic of what they do is they actually give you hedge funds have a bunch of data. Each hedge fund has a bunch of data. They don't share that. It's proprietary, right? That's how they make their money. Numerai actually shares the data with everyone, but it's obfuscated and cleaned such that you don't know what the data corresponds to. You don't know if it's an Apple stock, you don't know if it's a Microsoft stock, you don't know what it is. You just know that it's data and you can run models against it. So this actually allows anyone who's a statistician, anyone in the machine learning, data science space, anyone, you don't have to know about finance to be able to look at these models, try to glean some insights from them, and then upload your predictions on basically upload your predictions on how, based on the data they give you, how things have historically performed, how they're going to perform in the future. So it's a very, very interesting project, and you have to stake NMR tokens. So you have something to lose. So if you give shitty insights, you're actually going to get your token burned. But if you give good insights, you're going to actually earn more of that NMR token, which you can sell. So you'll actually make money, and then you'll actually have a greater control over time. You'll have greater control over the hedge fund. Okay, that's the quick and dirty. Now let's get into a little bit more detail here. So they have what's called a meta model. So let's take a little bit of more of a step back, because this is it sounds like a crazy project. How is this even possible? And this is why I'm constantly talking about cryptocurrency stuff. I talked about Mir the other day, and then I talked about Mir was the latest one I spoke about. I talked about the Visa Universal Payment Channel before that. It's just such an interesting fucking space, because there's so many things that can be done now that could not be done before. You could not, based on the technology that we have here, based on the things that cryptocurrency opens up. So there's just all these new things you can do now. As I say with these things, who knows? Maybe this one will fail. But based on, and the reason that this actually came up was because I've been following this project for a while. Really interesting project. They just released a blog post on the performance of their hedge fund. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the hedge fund, really good performance, and we'll get into that. But when you actually submit your essentially predictions on what the market is going to do based on the data set they give you, they then trade that. It's not automatically traded, right? They run a hedge fund that's based on the analysis of all these data scientists and anyone who wants to take part in the network all around the world. Now it's a crazy thing. They're essentially, they're using basically wisdom of the crowds to actually make gather market analysis and actually execute trades based on that, which is absolutely crazy. One of their thesis is that your average hedge fund has 200 to 300 people. Right now, I think they have currently, when I last checked, they have 3,300 different folks staking NMR right now on the network that's actually contributing data to the model. Now, the founder, first name's Richard, forget his last name, which was epic. He actually retweeted my tweet. I saw his Medium article. I was like, this thing is fucking epic, because they gave an update on how their hedge fund is performing against the market, against other, not only against the market, but more importantly, other hedge funds. And we'll get into why a hedge fund is different than you don't just judge it against the S&P 500. A hedge fund is fundamentally it's trying to solve a different problem. They announced a blog post announcing that performance. I retweeted. I said, "This is the fucking future. We're living in the future." Anonymous. They can give away sanitized data. They can give away their bread and butter, their sanitized data, obfuscated. And you can run models on it. Again, you don't have to know anything about finance. You can glean and create models based on the data they give you, based on previous history of all those data, of all that data, and then you can make predictions going forward. It's crazy. They've obfuscated the finance part out of it. This is now an artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural net, however many buzzwords I'll throw at you, problem, and that allows a greater number of people to participate in it. There's no barriers to entry. Working at a hedge fund, it's hard to get into a hedge fund. Call it what it is. And you definitely have a better shot if you're working in the United States or living in the United States. You can be anywhere in the world. You need an internet connection. And if you have something special, you're smart, and you think you can contribute, you will be compensated for that. I think that's ultimately what cryptocurrency in a lot of ways is. It's about bringing value to those people that are contributing something valuable to humanity. Now, I think the internet broadly does this as well. Anyone with an internet connection has all the sum of human knowledge, and they can actually create and upload to the internet, and they can share their ideas, and they can take part in a global conversation like never before. Cryptocurrency adds a whole nother layer to this, and I think just moves us in that direction even more. So that's why I'm very bullish on this technology, and I talk about I'm a big fan of humanity. People are like, oh, humans. I love humanity. I love the things we're doing here. Honestly, before I'm an American, I'm a human, and I love the United States. I love what this country stands for. But ultimately, we're all on the same side here. We're all humans, and anything that's going to unlock anything that's going to give more agency to individuals and be able to unlock and allow them to take part in the global conversation, allow them to take part in the global intelligence information game, allow them and most importantly, allow them to be compensated for that. Because I do fundamentally believe that the individuals that are the smartest, that are the most intelligent, that have the best ideas, that have the most ingenuity, I want value to accrue to those individuals, so then it has a compounding effect. If the smartest people on the planet have all the capital, not all the capital, but a large share of the capital, they will put it to use wisely. And they will be able to compound that, and they will be able to create bigger and better things from that. And that's what Numerai does. It allows anyone to take part in this and be compensated for their intelligence. And they have a few other projects which we'll talk about, which are interesting. But let's keep going in here. Let's just talk through the steps of what this looks like. So the core of Numerai is a free data set. It's been cleaned and regulated, obfuscated. So you download the data set, you build your model, and submit your predictions back to Numerai. So you download the data set, you run whatever it is you do on this. You run your modeling on this data set. Again, it has numbers, but the data is obfuscated, so you don't exactly know what the data corresponds to. So that allows Numerai to hold on to their secret sauce, because at the end of the day, they're a hedge fund. They have $43 million in assets under management, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So then after you submit your predictions back to Numerai, you stake your NMR in your models, your NMR token. This is that skin in the game. This is in a lot of crypto games. Call it a game. Everything's a game at the end of the day. In a lot of crypto games, you think of where's the skin in the game, or think about cryptocurrency in general. Where is the skin in the game? What gives you the incentive to act a certain way? In this case, NMR. It's earned or burned based on your performance. You perform poorly, you have a monetary loss. You perform well, you have a monetary gain. And you can also automate your weekly submissions and grow your stake over time. So the blog post that actually like I said, the blog post that actually brought this to my attention. Last time I read about it was probably 6 months ago or something. I'm always just looking at projects, seeing what they do when they list on Coinbase. I'm like, okay, what does this project do? I'm just always love reading about what they're doing. So their 2020 quant fund returns in 2020 was 7.68%. A lot of their benchmarks that they compete with, the Aurum Quant Equity Market Neutral Hedge Fund Index, the Renaissance RIDA, the Renaissance's Ridge, AQR Global Stock Selection. Anyway, it blew all them out of the water. Now, you may say 7% in 2020, that's not that great, and we'll get into that right now, actually. So a hedge fund, its goal is not to just absolute returns. Okay, a hedge fund, S&P 500 will, especially in a bull market, actually almost always in a bull market, will beat a hedge fund. Depending on the hedge fund, but generally a hedge fund is meant to be low volatility, and when shit hits the fan, your wealth is going to be preserved. So you really want to see when the market tanks 20%, how are the hedge funds doing? So a lot of them did poorly. Numerai did not. Specifically, these are quant hedge funds they're looking at. So they also run they run what's called a market neutral fund, which means, as I said, it won't perform the best when the market's going gangbusters, but when the market goes down, there's a hedge. And a market neutral fund means for every dollar you're long a stock, you also have to be short a stock. So what that means is, functionally what that means is you have to be short the same amount of stocks that you are long. So this takes, and what they call it, this is the hard mode Wall Street problem. Running a market neutral fund and doing well is the hardest, is they claim to be one of the harder things to do on Wall Street. And the reason for that is, in a bull market, I bet you and your homies on Robinhood fucking buying stocks think you're goddamn Warren Buffett, because the market's been absolute gangbusters. Everything's going up, and you're up 200% because you bought meme stocks. First of all, congratulations. Second of all, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good stock picker. When you have to be long and short stocks, because you need to be able to protect your downside, because that's what a hedge fund does. You got to protect your downside. You have to be a lot better at picking stocks, because if you're also going to be short some stocks. So when you're short stocks, when it goes up in value, that hurts you. So what's interesting about shorting a stock is your losses can be theoretically infinite, because the stock price can always keep going up, and you can lose your shirt on that. So if you have a market neutral fund and you have to be short and long stocks, that means you actually have to pick the right stocks. If you're only in long positions, especially in this bull market in the last year, then everyone's up. A monkey throwing darts at the wall is up, but a monkey throwing darts at both short and long positions is likely not up, because there's shorts Google, shorts Zoom, boom, done. They're going to explode. So it's an interesting, and a lot of this stuff is new to me, and I'll link to the blog post because I think this stuff's really interesting, but it's a lot of, I think the blog post is great because it really gets inside it's a learning exercise in what a hedge fund actually does. So an example they gave of a good market neutral fund tactic, you wouldn't be long U.S. and short Japan, because if long U.S. stocks, short Japanese stocks. Reason being, that's not market neutral, because if the Japanese stock market outperforms the U.S. market, you're hosed, because you were short that position. Boom. The example they give is, if you're long Apple and short Microsoft, that's in the same country, that's in the same sector. So the likelihood that they move together, it's more likely that they move together. So if you're long and short one, then that's going to protect your downside more so than the example of being short Japanese stocks, long U.S. stocks. That's just an interesting little example that they gave. So a lot of times, you know, you don't want to look at absolute returns when it comes to a hedge fund. You're not going to look at, oh, it was up 5% or it was up 10%. A lot of times I think people will just say, oh, look, it's all about absolute, it's just how much were you up. Another very important thing is the volatility. So were you up 50%, but at one point your value, so for S&P 500, I think it went, what did it go down, like 30% or something during COVID. It went down 30%, then it went up, you know, eventually up 50%, whatever it was. And now it's up at all-time highs. That 30%, that's a lot of volatility that you just absorbed. So you got to think about, it's not just at the end of the year, where were you? It's where were you throughout every single day of that year? Because what if you needed to cash out? What if you needed to cash out? What if you need those funds when you were down 30%? That would be, you'd be taking on serious losses. So you want your fund to be a hedge fund. You want it to be as low volatility as possible, because that's lower risk, and that means that you can access your funds without having to sell when they're way down. And it's solving a different problem. It's more about wealth preservation and being able to survive market downturns. So it's solving a different problem. And Numerai, they actually broke out their long positions and compared that to the Russell index, and they beat the Russell 2000 index. So just taking their long positions, again, they're a market neutral fund, so they have long and short positions, but they just, as a thought experiment, they said, okay, what if we just did long positions? Would we still be beating the market? And yes, absolutely. And say, okay, well, if that's beating the market, why don't you just do that? And what they say is that's not what we're going for. The hardest problem to solve is a market neutral fund, and that's what, again, because this is a product. At the end of the day, they're selling this to people. So they have $43 million in assets under management, and they just made a deal with a pension fund that they got $20 million from this pension fund, and they can invest another up to $130 million. So this is a very big deal for them. So remember, they have a product side to this. So you contribute as a data scientist, as a statistician, you can contribute your knowledge to their network. They'll compensate you an NMR token. You can sell that on an exchange. And then they'll go and they'll take your knowledge, and their hedge fund, their fees are 2% per year, and then 20% of the high water mark. I don't know what that means, but 20% of profits, I think, is one way to put that. So it's an interesting model. They said, what happens when 100,000, and it's not 100,000 people at this point, but let's just crowdsource this. Let's just let's just cut out the middleman. Let's give everyone this sanitized data, which is a huge breakthrough. Let's let them run models on it. Let's let them stake on it, and let's see what happens. And so far, it's working extremely well. So granted, it hasn't been around that long. I always like to think, if you're looking at investment strategies, don't look at something that, this fund has been doing good the past few years. Talk to me when it's been doing well for 20 years. You want to build wealth, you have to think in decades. Don't think in what was hot this last year. Don't think it was hot 5 years ago. Hell, even 10 years. Think in decades, which is why the vast majority of my net worth is in index funds. Stock market index, just mainly the U.S. stock market index fund, the total stock market Vanguard index fund. Now, there's a few other projects they have or a couple other projects that I want to touch on real quick before I wrap this up. And that is, they have a product called Signals, which, if you're not a data savvy, you still got to be a little savvy with your, be able to be a little tech savvy to be able to do this. But their Numerai, their regular hedge fund product, is a little, or their regular, contributing to that is, you have to be a developer. You have to know your shit. You have to be know how to use process data on process large data sets, be able to glean insights from them, upload them in a certain format. There's knowledge there. They also have a thing called Signals, which is it's much easier. All out of the 5,000 biggest companies in the world, the 5,000 stocks, you just pick. I think you have to upload at least 10, but you give signals on each of those stocks. Now, it's a little easier, I think, to dip your toes into this. And frankly, I was reading through the documentation. I don't understand some of it, but it was basically giving a numerical value on each stock, and those numbers mean something. They mean multiple things. So it's not just this stock goes up, this stock goes down, down, bad, up, good. It's a little more complicated than that. So the signals is something that they launched, I think, probably to make it a little bit easier for people to be able to contribute and be able to have fun and also earn money based on their predictions. And they also have another product, which it looks like it hasn't been updated in a while. I'm always curious. If you ever want to see, quick litmus test, if you ever want to see if a project is still being maintained, just go to the Twitter and see if they're still tweeting. Because if they're not still tweeting, then they're asleep at the wheel. And Erasure, I think their latest tweet is like from several months ago. So, it makes me wonder, well, what their dedication is to the project. But I'm going to read this. It's a true information marketplace. And in one of their promo videos, it says that a true information marketplace has not yet worked because it's been challenging to prove to folks that if they submit valuable data, that they will be rewarded. And secondly, there hasn't been an immutable ledger that others can look back on to audit someone's performance. So Erasure is kind of a prediction market type thing. You can purchase, and this is a little bit more pie in the sky than we were talking about, but you can, because it's much more broad than just finance. It could be anything. And there's another project called Augur, which is a prediction market as well, where you can bet on sports, you can bet on crop yields in the Sahara. You can create a prediction market around anything. And if you're wrong, you have skin in the game. So if you're wrong, you will actually lose. You'll lose funds. In this case, you'll lose the NMR token, which can be exchanged. I think it's like $40 per token right now. That can be exchanged for real money. So Erasure thing, it is super fascinating because in the example they gave, if someone sent you an email, I got a bunch of stock picks. There's no real true way to know whether to trust them. You need to see verifiable timestamped data that they said this on a certain date, they put their money here, and this is how this is how their funds have performed. In the same way that Erasure broadens out, it's not just about stock picking, it's about how well are you predicting any number of events. There's also general things like even just doing a simple task. Like I saw the latest one in their example on their site was, someone just requested something like, it was something like, give me 1,000 PDFs in this scientific journal, or then a link to 1,000 different scientific journals or something with this type of format on this type of subject, and someone paid $100 for that. What's a little weird about Erasure is, if someone gives it to me, I can just say, this isn't right, even though if it is right. And this is maybe my ignorance of the platform. Maybe there's a repercussion there. But if someone gives it to me, I say, no, this isn't right, boom, I can burn your NMR token. But what if it was right? There's not, in Augur solves this a little differently, because they have everyone who has the Augur token can actually stake the outcome of events. They can say, Biden won the latest presidential election, and they can say the results of that. With this one, it looks like the counterparty is the only one that gets to judge. It's not just a crowdsourced decision. So that's an interesting it's an interesting thing. So I just want to call that project out. But Numerai is a wrap up here. Numerai is a very, very interesting project. I'm very excited to see what this does. I mean, I'm up here late. I couldn't sleep. I was reading. I was like, damn, I need to riff on this right now, especially with their branding. Look at their videos, like late night vibes, like futuristic 2077, fucking just epic kind of epic branding. Honestly, it's not about the branding, of course, but it's just an interesting. I encourage you to check it out. So very curious to see where this project goes. They've got 43 million in assets under management. It's a crowdsourced hedge fund where you can be anonymous and contribute to it and get rewarded for your contributions. It's an unbelievable system. It's something that is a product of our of our time and the technology that cryptocurrency affords. And I'll be straight up. I think, could you do this without cryptocurrency? Yeah, I think you could. I always like to ask that. Could you do this without cryptocurrency? Yeah. Could you just have you upload your model, because you're still uploading your models off chain. So a lot of this stuff isn't even happening on the blockchain. At some point, maybe it will be, but right now it's not. It's not verifiable. They have to verify, and they compensate you based on what they deem the market did, and they have a vested interest because they're going to compensate you. If they compensate you, you'll stick around and give them more insight. So, but it's an interesting project, and the proof's in the pudding. They've been performing well the past couple years after they retooled how they give data to people and retooled their system. So I'm very curious to see how this project works out. Very, very interested in the cryptocurrency space. I really, really think there's something here. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's just, that's what I always say. It's like, who knows if this thing's going to fall. But this stuff is just so interesting. I love that people are trying things, but they're throwing shit against the wall. There's the crypto part of the internet right now is super, it's positive, and it's they have their heads in the cloud. Everyone's imagining what you can do with all this stuff. And granted, maybe will the bubble burst? Maybe, but there's something here. The bubble burst in .com bubble burst, and guess what? The internet has exploded since then, and all those ideas that were around when that bubble burst, all those companies that failed, boom, those are all real companies today. They were just a little early, and maybe were raising money when they shouldn't have been because they didn't actually know what the fuck they were doing. But it's just, the point still stands. Bubble or not, there's technology here that is being used today that can be used in other ways going forward. Obviously, Bitcoin, I think, is the best example. It's the clearest example of this. Is $30 billion of value is transferred a day with Bitcoin. It's unbelievable. It doesn't sound like a lot, but relative to the capital markets and the foreign, the amount of money that just is exchanged between countries daily. But this is the decentralized network. It's unbelievable. The fact that a Bitcoin's even over $1 is unbelievable. Like, this is, what's that, 55K now? It's unbelievable. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful space. A lot of learning, a lot of smart people going into it. Very excited to see where it goes. Thank you for listening. This podcast is available. Just search No Gradient wherever you get your podcasts. It's also available on YouTube. I'll link to that in the show notes. Finding the podcast on YouTube is a bit of a du jour. I'll be straight up. Follow me on Twitter at Dick C. Lucas. Follow me on Instagram, Dick C. Lucas. I'll post there when I post a new episode. Thank you. With the late night vibes, late night studio vibes, with the cars going by, maybe some people walking by with the lights going red, lights going green. It's just an epic vibe out here right now. So right on. Thank you for listening. Numerai, very interesting project. Very curious to see what they do. Wish the team the best of luck. I love doing that because I love talking about this stuff. If they just hear me say that, or if they just know someone, I'm just like, dude, keep doing your thing. Anyone that's trying shit, I'm like, dude, keep doing your thing. Keep doing your thing. Dude or gal. Keep doing your thing. So, oh, damn. Look at that. We got some paramedics here. They're just driving by. Damn. You gents do your thing. Thank you for your service. Everyone's out there doing something. Okay, here we go. Thanks for joining me late night. We'll catch you on the next one, maybe.